Believe it or not, but this is a game I've had an interest in ever since I was very young. You see, stores where you could rent movies and games were much more popular back then, and at one such store I would often visit had this game. Unfortunately back then I never gave it a try, but there was something about the cover and art style that always interested me, and ever since the game has always been on the back of my mind. Okage Shadow King was developed by Xeneer Works and was published by Sony Computer Entertainment. So after so many years of interest and then finally having played the game myself, is Okage Shadow King worth playing? The game's story begins in a small village with a boy named Ari, who one day wakes up to see his dad found a strange jar. After doing some chores and a long conversation with his dad, Ari sets out to see the circus visiting the little village. However, on that night, his sister Annie gets attacked by a ghost. The attack leaves Annie with a curse causing her to speak in Pig Latin. To cure her of her curse, their dad decides to use the jar he found, believing it capable of granting wishes. However, upon opening the jar, he ends up freeing an evil king named Stan. Stan agrees to cure Annie as long as someone agrees to become his slave. Because of his shadow, Ari ends up becoming Stan's servant. While Stan does cure Annie's curse, she ends up with a pink shadow. Stan concludes that his powers haven't fully restored yet, and in order to do so, he commands Ari to travel the world and fight other evil kings, so Stan can get stronger and one day take over the world. It's a fun little concept, and it becomes quite a journey. The story though remains pretty easy to follow without being too simplistic despite its more absurd moments. What really helps is the colorful cast of characters Ari will meet, both NPCs and party members. You will encounter a noble hero like Rosalind, a snobby princess, a turf war between children, a delusional pop star, and so much more. With that being said though, Stan easily steals the show as his desires to be evil with no one really taking him seriously is quite humorous. Plus, Stan has some pretty great lines and entertaining banter between him and everyone else. And he does try to do evil things like blow up small children. His butler James can be pretty entertaining as well. Ari himself is a silent protagonist, and it actually serves a more important part of the story. Not only do people often talk about his lack of speaking up and him constantly being overshadowed, but there's even a moment where this becomes a focal point, and it's honestly my favorite part of the story. Okage Shadow King is a turn-based RPG. In the game, you will either be walking around or fighting. While walking around, you can visit shops to buy items and equipment, visit inns where you can heal, save, or change your party members, or just talk to NPCs. When walking around in town, you won't have a map, and because of the lack of control of the camera, you can get a bit lost or disoriented. You will get a map when you're on the world map, but usually they're very open areas, so it's not really necessary. Dungeons, on the other hand, are where maps are a bit more useful. Often in dungeons, you will have to kill all the urns on the floor before you can progress to the next floor. Urns are also good ways to grind, and often you can find healing books in dungeons, making them not too difficult. However, there is one dungeon that is quite large. You will progress through the game in pretty standard RPG ways by talking to certain NPCs, exploring dungeons, and fighting bosses. Once you get far enough in the game, you will then gain access to teleporting stones, which make it much easier to navigate between certain areas. Battles are where things get a bit more interesting. Fighting is indicated by walking into ghosts that will follow you. When in fights, your characters will have to wait for their attack time bars to fill up, also known as ATBs. The annoying part of this is that 1. The fighting pauses at awkward moments when picking a character's moves, and 2. You're rather limited to which monsters you want to attack when there are large groups of them. As you fight monsters, your characters will level up and earn new skills as they level up. These skills make each character unique in battle. Some skills will damage enemies, slow them down, heal your characters, or give your party some buffs. Unfortunately, some skills will consume health to use them, so I often avoid these skills. However, skills that consume ability points are consuming points that the whole party shares, as each character themselves only has a certain amount of ability points that they contribute to the whole party, which at least makes boss fights more about strategy. Also, you will lose a fight if Ari ever dies, making keeping him alive the most important thing in every fight. There are rare moments when Stan will fight some enemies in battle, as well as before a battle. See, sometimes Stan will appear before you before a fight, letting you create a battle quote. If he likes the quote, he will start off the battle by attacking the enemies with some powerful attacks. If not, then he just insults you, which can actually be funny. There are also a few side quests in the game, but they really aren't all that spectacular. The one that stands out to me the most would be the one where you have to find a bunch of hidden items throughout the game's world just to get Ari's special sword, which isn't necessary, as simply leveling up your characters to get their skills, particularly in the last dungeon, is effective enough to take on the final boss. And of all the characters, I'd easily say that Rosalind and Big Bull are the best to level up as they have the greatest skills. In terms of visuals, the game looks good. It's nothing amazing, but the art style is quite appealing, and it's often compared to the likes of Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. Character models have some quirky and memorable designs with some decent detail to them, but they also have some rather stiff animations. However, it all works very well for Stan, as he has a great but simple design. The environments can be really great too, like some of the small towns with their cartoon-like buildings, and some of the more nature-like areas like the forest, sandy beaches, and the snowy valley with its cute snowmen. The music is also quite good with some really memorable tunes, some of the tracks really being upbeat, some atmospheric, and others really knowing how to set a mood. So, would I recommend Okage Shadow King? Yeah, as long as you like turn-based RPGs as much as I do. This certainly isn't an RPG for everyone, as it has some flaws in the combat, but it all works well enough that I can look past these. Yes, the game isn't perfect. Again, it does have its flaws. Making sure Ari doesn't die can be annoying, the camera isn't always the easiest to manage, there are a few moments where you need to grind, and certain monster types make grinding quite the pain. For me though, the world and characters the game presents are all really great. The world is creative, quirky, and has a rather interesting backstory. Stan and all the other characters are super great as well, as there are so many colorful and memorable characters in the game. While I don't think story should be more important than gameplay, the story here is very entertaining and has a really great shining moment about being overshadowed that I quite liked. The gameplay on the other hand is just okay. It's nothing special, but it's not bad for an RPG. Again, if you like turn-based RPGs as much as I do, I would say this is a game worth giving it a try. And it's not too long either, as you can beat it in under 30 hours. It's not an amazing RPG, but to me, it's still an underrated gem that will take you on quite a memorable journey for the PS2. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this review and found it to be rather informative. If you'd like to see more reviews, please check out my channel. And please don't forget to subscribe. And if there are any other PS2 games you'd like to see me review in the future, please leave a suggestion down below. Well, I'm MCB the PS2 Gamer, and I'll see you guys next time.